Alright, first problem. Beginning of this, pretty easy. What is the degrees of freedom? How do you find degrees of freedom? N minus 1, you don't need to write all that, but and our N was 18, so our degrees of freedom should be. Then it says draw and shape curve to find p-value. It already gives you your test statistic value, which is over here. So this is 1.845. We're using T. We're using T with 1.845 and degrees of freedom of 17. And you end up getting your p-value as what? What's the p-value?
4.423.
2, 3 or 1, 3?
I got 1.
I think it's 1, 3. Alright, this one is asked very vague, but a lot of people, I usually ask this question in a completely different way, and they try to plug in the X bar being something, and they plug it in wrong. So if I were to draw this curve, what goes here? If I'm talking about z's at 0, if I'm talking about the numbers of the problem, this is 22. So I'm drawing this curve. That's my line, and I shaded that way. This is my X bar. So what do I know about my X bar? And so you should be able to make sense of that. The question itself was very vague as far as trying to figure out what I was actually asking. But this should make sense that you can get there to, I don't know what it is, but I know it's bigger than 22. I used to do this as a quiz, and I had them maybe write the conclusion, and they would write an X bar of 22. Well, that wouldn't make sense because 22 minus 22 would give you 0. So it's not going to give you a test statistic value of 1.8 something. All right, so interpret p-value. This is just the interpret sentence, making sure we do it correctly. So how does it start?
H equals
If that really is true, I don't know that I wrote in this sentence really is true. Did I? Then what? There's what? So what percent is that?
4.13.
Oh, this is the sense that people got this messed up. Of having a sample. And if it makes you feel better to just say observations because we don't know what these are. Sample 18 is fine. But then what? What did we just say about X bar for this problem? So I couldn't plug in a number there because I don't know it. But I know for a fact that it is not 22. And that's why C is there, is so that you kind of understand that.
Why don't you write 22?
Because 22 is not your X bar, 22 is your mu. And if 22 is your X bar, then your test statistic value would be 0. Because 22 minus 22. If this were 22 and this were 22, then my test statistic value would be 0. And we know
Couldn't we just do with the mu of 22 instead of X bar?
no, because the interpret is getting this value or higher, like your statistic value. Alright, so are the results statistically significant at 0.05? Yes or no? Why?
It's less than.
And that was pretty much asked in the group activity too. It was less. That's all I needed to see. There was that connection. How would your p-value change if you were testing the alternative versus being not equal to? It would double. And you can write that or write it in words, but I said also draw and shape the curve.
So I forgot.
So you multiply the p-value times 2. So our new p-value you could have, just writing out it would double would be fine. Or actually doing the math. Either one of those would work. The next problems are just basically understanding what you would do for your conclusion, and understanding how to write the conclusion correctly. So in this problem, it gave us the p-value. So really not much else matters other than just using it in context. So how does this p-value compared to that? It is not less than, which means what? The null hypothesis that y which means that we you need to write both of these. You're either writing this one, which is in context, or this one, which is just directly taking the alternative hypothesis.
0.5 or 0.05.
Say that again. Here. Okay, thank you. All right, so when I switch that to B, not much should change. This part is now going to be what instead? This part is now that it is, which means that we, and everything else stays the same. That would be your part B, just with me erasing those 4 words. Questions? This is just making sure you understand the difference between the two conclusions. All right, so I realized this is B in the middle of class on Friday, realizing how long it took for the group thing, which is fine. I was making you do a 4-step here, and I changed my mind after that. So if your test statistic from running the test is a 2.011, would your findings be statistically significant? Well, we've got to find something about the problem first. Pill tablets are formed by compressing a granular material that contains the active ingredient and various fillers. The amount of active ingredient in the pill can be measured in the process. The mean amount of active ingredient in the Nu-X tablet from this particular manufacturer is supposed to be 115. So that's probably going to be my what? My mu and my null. Because if there is not enough of the active ingredient, then the patient will not get all the necessary health benefits. So we are checking to make sure that it actually works, which means we should be testing. So our null hypothesis is that mu equals 115 milligrams. So what would our alternative be? You're seeing if mu is greater than, because you want the ingredients to work. So this gives me my direction that I need to use for B. So I've already got my curve. I can't do this without. Close enough. I've got 2.011 over here somewhere. What else do I need? So why did I leave all this in here? I need to know what? The sample size. So there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So I need to know the fact that n equals 10, but I'm actually using that to get what? You're using your degrees of freedom being 9, and this, so I would use the calculator at this point. Let's just talk through, make sure everybody understands, remembering the calculator notation stuff here. Where would I go in my calculator to do this? Second distribution and down to TCDF. And then your lower is going to be 2.011. Your upper is 1E99. Your degrees of freedom is 9. And you should get a p-value of 0.0376. I was using second distribution TCDF to get there. So again, would it be statistically significant? Yes or no? Why? My p-value of 0.0376 is less than my alpha of 0.05.
So your 2.011 is your p-value?
It's your test statistic that you use. Like, most people are going to think about it as t-value, yes.
So when you did second distribution, you put that?
Yes. I'm put that as my lower, and then my upper is 1E99. All right, so I might want to copy this over. I'm using these within each one. So a type 1 error means that we chose to do what? We chose to reject or fail to reject. And so why would we reject? So the data showed that mu was but what? That's actually not the case. So in words, in context here, this would be saying we found that what in context to this problem? With the stuff that I like, where I have highlighted. So the data showed what? That there is enough of the active ingredient, but that's actually not the case. So what would be consequences there? I'm gonna write both.
The first one was for alternate ways to get health benefits, but the way actually works.
You're opposite. Showed there was enough active ingredient.
No, error one would be it worked, but we said it doesn't, right?
Type 1 errors, we showed that it does work. We showed that it's greater than.
I thought on the left side it was like true, the right side was false.
Left side, like you're talking about my tree thing, we rejected the null hypothesis when we shouldn't have. So if we rejected it, we found that alternative. So in this case, what is something? So if we told the company, your drug looks good, what's going to happen? And something along the lines of people taking it are not getting the necessary, not getting. And that's all it said. Like, go wording specific, but this one just literally said necessary health benefits. So they thought they were getting the health benefits, but they actually weren't. So in a type 2 error, data showed what?
Not greater than 150 something like that.
If I wanted to put that in layman terms, data showed the drug, there isn't enough drug. There actually was. So what would be the consequence here? All right, so two different directions here. Some people are going to take this to the extreme and say the company is going to put too much active ingredient, and now the people are getting health issues because they're getting too much. There's nothing wrong with that. Some people are going to say the company is going to make changes and put more in there than they should, so the company is losing money because they're supplying extra active ingredient that doesn't need to be there. Those are kind of two completely different consequences, but it's still the exact same thing because you're taking it in the direction you're supposed to and going with what happens out of it. Questions with that? So, and put more active ingredient in the pill. So, and that's where people are going to change which direction they say. It's definitely going to be a wasted expense for the company. Sometimes I'll ask specifically what would be the consequences for the company or what would be the consequences for the person taking the drug, and then you could kind of go one direction or the other. But usually I'm just going to ask it like this. So which is worse here? Too much active ingredient in the company with a wasted expense, or taking the pill where they're not getting necessary health benefits? So the way that I answered this problem, I would definitely say a type 1 error is worse because people not getting health benefits is worse than but this is definitely one of those where somebody could take it a little bit farther with E and F and talk about, well, if they get too much, now it's working against them and could have other issues. And because of their answer there, they might change and go with that one instead. And that's fine too. I need to see that you're answering the question correctly.
That was the last one, right? On there. Okay.